December 3rd, 2018, Luka Modric is voted the best player in the world. Luka wins this accolade in part for his performances with Croatia at the World Cup, almost becoming world champions in the process. But 27 years before this, Croatia didn't even exist as a country. The 13th of May 1990, Dinamo Zagreb of Croatia face off against Serbian team Red Star Belgrade in the Yugoslavian First League. Yugoslavia was an amalgamation of several different territories and as a result actually had a very strong football team, reaching the semi-finals of the very first World Cup, as well as reaching the quarter-final of Italia 90, but nobody at the time knew that this quarter-final would be their last ever appearance at a World Cup. And this is because of a match played between Dinamo Zagreb and Red Star Belgrade. These two teams were consistently battling it out at the top of the division, but what made the headlines on that day was the politics going on in the country. Yugoslavia had always been a communist state, but in the lead up to that match, Croatian Nationalist Party, the Croatian Democratic Union, was rising to power. And one of their main policies? Croatian independence. A policy that many Yugoslavians would disagree with. A lot of them being Red Star Belgrade fans. 3,000 Red Star Belgrade fans made the trip to Zagreb for this game, and before the ball was even kicked, fighting began to break out. But when it carried over to the stadiums, things escalated further than anyone could have imagined. The ultras of Dinamo Zagreb, also known as the Bad Blue Boys, began launching stones towards the Red Star fans. The Red Star fans, also known as the Delije, reacted with provocative chanting such as "Zagreb is Serbian" on repeat. But when they began to chant "We'll kill Tudman" in reference to Franjo Tudman, the face of the Croatian independence movement, things moved away from football and became a worldwide geopolitical affair that would change the lives of millions forever, including a 5-year-old Luka Modric. The escalation from the fans saw heavy police involvement, the stadium set on fire, and mass rioting on the streets of Zagreb. By this point, the Red Star players had already exited and fled the scene. But the Dinamo players stayed, and through one moment of madness, club captain Zvonimir Boban became a symbol for Croatian independence when he kicked a police officer who was mistreating a Zagreb fan. In reaction, the Zagreb fans created a human shield to stop the police from getting to Boban. This moment would then become symbolic of the Croatian defiance and resistance against Serbia. But whilst being heralded as a hero in Croatia, Boban was labelled a Croatian nationalist in Serbia. This match is believed to have sparked the Croatian War of Independence that quickly followed. The war itself ravaged parts of Croatia. Luka Modric at the time was only 5 years old but forced to flee his childhood home, and his grandfather was even executed by Serbian rebels who operated as part of the police force. After Luka and his family fled, the house was burned down and the Modric family became refugees, residing in a hotel for 7 years in Zadar. But they still weren't safe. During this war, thousands upon thousands of bombs landed in Zadar. But in 1992, Modric began playing football in the parking lot of this hotel, and even references Zagreb captain Zvonimir Boban as one of his idols growing up. The War of Independence would last until 1995. By this time, Modric was 10 years old. He later joined Zadar's academy before moving on to playing for the club of his idol, the club where it all began, Dinamo Zagreb. The Croatian national team at the time was only just finding its feet and were actually ranked 124th in the world. Getting to a World Cup final would have never have even crossed the minds of anyone in the country. They were simply happy to be recognised as an independent state with their own football team, with their own culture, and players who represented the people of Croatia. But despite being a new team, Croatia got to the semi-finals of the 1998 World Cup due to amazing performances by Davor Suker, an ex-Zagreb player. But the team and country was still in its formative years. Over the next 20 years, Croatia would go from strength to strength, both in football but also economically. And the personification of this is Luka Modric, a player and person who was dealt one of the most difficult hands in life, overcoming adversity after adversity and becoming one of the best there ever was in the process.